Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Expert Dialogue podcast by Precious Kalu. So, today I have a very special person, and his name is Ty Hoesgen. And he is a communication coach and a three times best selling author who is helping professionals like you to speak with clarity and confidence. So, today we are going to discuss a lot of things and practice effective communication to help you speak better. So, stay tuned to the end of the session and don't skip. And don't forget to share with your friends, your loved ones, and everyone else. So, Ty, how are you doing today? I hope you're good.
I'm doing excellent. Yes, I'm excited for our conversation.
Thank you for joining. I know we've actually, let me say this because I know I felt bad at some point rescheduling with you for several times because I was traveling. So I really appreciate you for, being kind to also come for the third time or so.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to do it. You had good communication in the way that you rescheduled, so I let it slide.
Thank you. So I have so many questions to ask, but first of all, I would really love to ask you what's your most embarrassing moment? I mean, when it comes to speaking, have you ever been nervous and how did you bounce back from it?
Oh, I have tons of these moments, and I spent most of my life actually being nervous before learning about communication. One
Mm,
that comes to mind, an embarrassing moment. So I remember this very vividly. I was in a team meeting, so I was pretty early in my career. I was selling life insurance at this point. This was one of the only jobs that I could get out of
yeah.
school. And I remember we're doing a team meeting, so everyone's kind of going around the room giving their updates. There's about 10 of us in the room. And my boss looked at me and asked me how my week was and to give an update for the team. So, in
Mm-hmm,
particular, he asked, how's it going with this one big client that you've been trying to get? And I remember my answer was, oh, it's going, and I'm figuring some stuff out, and I'm working on some stuff, and I'm trying to work on some stuff.
mm.
And he looked right at me and said, I have no idea what that means.
Wow.
And the whole room went silent, and so it felt like an hour passed, but it was probably only a few seconds. I remember I was so
Mm-hmm,
embarrassed. Sonny eventually just looks at me and says, okay, figure it out and let me know. So I remember going home that day, and I remember typing into my computer on Google, can I still be successful without having to talk? Because I was
wow.
not a good speaker. I did not want to have to keep speaking at all. And as you
Hmm.
can imagine, Precious, there wasn't a whole lot of results that came up for me. So what I Googled next was how to speak so people actually understand you.
Okay.
And that did give me some results. So then I just started researching and learning, and I ended up learning about one thing in particular, which is speaking with structure, which is really just organizing your thoughts and ideas in a way that makes sense.
Mm-hmm,
So then I
mm-hmm.
went back and I remember practicing and rereading this one particular article about structure for hours and hours and hours. And then I went back to the meeting the next week, and when he asked me the same question, I said, I'm pretty optimistic about this client. I'm optimistic because he responded to some of my emails, he sent in some information,
Yeah.
and he said he just wants to get things done quickly. So overall, I'm pretty optimistic. And I remember he looked at me again the same way, but this time my boss said, good work. And that was the
Wow.
first time I
Okay.
heard good work since I had graduated from school, graduated from university. So that was kind of the first
Wow.
moment where I was like, oh, there's a way that I could improve at this and get better. And then I just kind of became
Mm-hmm.
obsessed and everything took off from there.
Wow. I mean, was that really what like sparked your passion to helping other people, or maybe something else?
Yeah, it was just because I was so bad at it for so many years. So I was really shy, awkward kid growing up. I grew up
Wow.
on a little farm, actually, near a town of 800 people, very small town. And so I was alone on the farm except for one older sister. So my older sister was the exact opposite. She was bubbly, outgoing, extroverted. And if I was
We
asked a
all have
question,
that one sibling in the house, everyone house. Like it's just
yeah,
something.
do you have a sibling that's like that? Or are you
Yeah,
that
I mean,
sibling?
I'm actually the most quiet person in the house.
Oh yeah. So you have an is it an older or younger siblings that's more talkative?
Uh, they are younger. I'm actually the oldest.
Oh, you're the oldest and one of the quietest. Interesting. Interesting. For me, I
Yeah.
was the younger one, and my older sister, she was the talker. And it's funny, people would
Mhm.
ask me questions as a kid, and my sister would jump in and say, "Let me tell you what Ty thinks." Ooh, I'll answer that for Ty. So I didn't get much practice speaking, and I was cool with that. I just wanted to hide in the background. And then
Hmm.
so I was such a bad speaker, and I was so shy and so nervous and so awkward that it wasn't until I actually went to the professional world and had situations like that example I just shared, where I was like, oh, I need to get better at this because if you can't communicate well as an adult, professionally, you're not going to have very much success.
That's
Socially, you're
true.
not going to have very many friends or good connections. And then
Yeah.
in relationships, it's hard to build relationships and find the types of people maybe that you want to connect with if you don't know
Mm-hmm.
how to talk to people. So, yeah, all those struggles are really what made me obsessed. And then I just learned so much over the years that I eventually wanted to teach people what I had learned and kind of save them from a lot of the struggles that I had early on.
Wow, that's really amazing. Like, even when I watch some of the videos, if you tell me that you were shy, I'm like, how? Because I feel like, as you just said this, it takes practice. It takes a lot of effort and discipline to get to where you are right now, coming from your background. It's really amazing. And then when I think about something based on your field and what you're doing, how, for example, I'm just someone that maybe wants to learn how to communicate. How do you break the ice when you're meeting someone new?
Yeah, this is a really good question. I used to think that breaking the ice, you had to say a bunch of cool stuff or ask like
Mm-hmm.
really interesting questions, but that was entirely wrong because it doesn't have to be that complicated. Breaking the ice is really just kind of making a person feel more comfortable and more
Yeah.
relaxed in a new situation, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, what does that actually take? It really just takes giving off an impression that, hey, I'm nice, I'm normal, I'm not here to be a threat to you, I'm just here to have a casual chat. So it's
Yeah.
pretty basic. So I found to break the ice, anytime I just introduced myself to someone, shook their hand, smiled, made eye contact, and just asked a
Mm-hmm.
couple of basic questions while showing that I'm interested in them, that's
Yeah.
actually all it took. It was more about the impression that I gave off. So again, the smile, the handshake, the eye contact, asking
Yeah.
them easy questions. That's really all it took to break the ice. Not what I used to do, which would be like intense, deep question that I thought would work like what's one thing in the past that you regret that you wish you could change? Like I used to try to break the ice in really extreme ways and that never worked.
Wow. Like, for example, let's say maybe um I want to start a conversation. I'm skipping, trying to like merge two at once. To say that I want to start a conversation with you, and I say, "Hey Ty, uh, I saw you on LinkedIn and you're doing amazing. What's your best LinkedIn secret strategy?" I mean, is this a good way to start a conversation, or maybe I was being too professional or straight?
No, that's awesome. Anything that is related to the situation
Mm-hmm.
is usually the easiest way to start a conversation. So if you're on LinkedIn, talking about LinkedIn is just an easy, natural way to start a
Yeah.
conversation. If you're at a party, you could ask, hey, like, how do you know the host here? Or like, oh, is that
Mm-hmm.
wine you're drinking any good? Or that sparkling water, whatever it might be. It's just like
Yeah.
something that's relevant to the situation. Or if you're at a networking event, you can ask like, oh, do you come to the networking events often? Do you have a goal of amount of people that you're trying to meet at these? Just something related to where you are
Wow.
is going to be easy. If somebody's eating or if there's snacks at the thing, oh, like they're eating some crackers and cheese. Like, oh, how's the crackers and cheese? Like, just whatever's super simple and easy, because it's not really about the topic in those first few moments when you're trying to break the
Mm-hmm.
ice. It's
Yeah.
just about starting it in a way that's easy for the other person to answer. And I found that's what works the best.
Wow, that's really amazing. Because I was even going to ask you whether you have a favorite conversation starter. And then, as you just said this, I realized that there is really no favorite conversation starter. It's just based on the scenario, based on the environment, based on the situation, correct? Or maybe you have something else to say about that.
I would say starting the conversation would be, yeah, just be something related to the situation that you're in. Don't overthink it. No one's expecting anything highly of you when you're starting a conversation. But then once
Yeah.
it's started, you want to make sure that the conversation stays positive. Precious, have you ever been in a situation where you're making small talk with somebody and maybe you ask how their week was and they're like, "Oh, it was terrible. I got a flat tire and like my dog was sick and like my boss said this thing to me," and then they just start complaining to you? Does that ever happen?
Like, yeah, some people do say that. Some people do reply that way. Some people are like, maybe they just want to cover up and say, I'm fine. And in the middle of the conversation, they start to bring up those things that maybe have happened, the bad ones, the good ones. And it's just like a full conversation that maybe we are discussing about our week, how it went. But some people are really that good at starting with that complaint and everything. And you're like, at the end of the day, you maybe feel like sympathizing with them or saying sorry or saying, okay, the next week is going to be okay. And it just ends there.
Yeah, but that's not really the most fun conversation with someone new, right? Hearing
Yes.
someone complain. So I like to avoid that as much as possible. It's not that
Mm,
people shouldn't talk about their problems, but you shouldn't be talking about your problems when you're
at
making
first.
small talk with someone, right? That's
Mm,
for, maybe your close family member, your partner, your
yeah.
friend who's like wants to help you and is open to helping you, or a therapist, right? People
Mm-hmm.
that you're just casually in conversation with, we don't want to hear about your problems. No one does.
Yeah.
It's not fun. So I like to avoid that by asking a specific type of question, which is
Mm-hmm.
what I call a best part question. So
Yeah.
instead of how was your week, I'd say, what's been the best part of your week so far? Or what was the
Oh,
best part
wow.
of your week?
Okay.
Because then it forces them to think of something that's good, right? And so
Yeah.
the cool part about this, instead of how's your weekend, and they might say, oh, well, I had to take my dog to the vet, or like I
Mm-hmm.
sprained my toe. Instead of that, if you ask what the best part of their weekend was, they're not going to say the bad thing. They're going to be like, oh, well, actually, I took my dog to the dog park, or I had this really good meal at this restaurant, or I
Mm-hmm.
finished watching the season of my favorite show, whatever it is. But then now you're
Yeah.
talking about things that they like. It's positive, it's enjoyable, and you also get to learn about what a person is interested in. Because if I'm saying
Mhm.
the best part of my weekend was this great workout I had, chances are you know that I'm into fitness, and now you can talk about that. So a
Yes.
best part question, what was the best part of your week? What's the best part of your weekend? Best part of your week so far? What's been the best part of your summer? Best part of your trip?
Mm-hmm.
Any of that is great to keep a conversation positive, and people enjoy those conversations a lot more than the complaining ones.
Wow. Like I've actually learned something because it's all about how you start the conversation. How you start it is actually how the response is going to be. Wow. I'm really,
Yeah.
really excited because sometimes I mean communication we see communication as just something that is anyhow we just start it or we just end it just like that. Now let's say maybe I'm talking to someone and in the middle there is this awkward silence, like maybe ideas are run out or something is just missing. How do you navigate through that when you're having conversation with someone?
Yeah, I just stare at them deeply until they say something back. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I just look at them with a piercing gaze until they eventually leave. No, definitely don't do that.
Okay.
So, so what you want to do, if there's an awkward pause or a silence, there's really two things you could do, right? You could
Yeah.
choose to end the conversation, or you
Mm-hmm.
could decide to keep the conversation going. So
Mm-hmm.
either one is fine. You get to decide. The key here is just to have a couple of phrases that you are used to saying for each. So if you're like, okay, I'm done talking to this person, I want to end it, You could just say, okay, well, I got to get going here, but really enjoyed speaking with you. Let's talk again soon. Maybe that's what you say. Just pick your
Mm-hmm.
line that you're going to say every time because the problem is we often just don't know how to end. And so
Mm-hmm.
if you know how to end, like I just say some version of that exact thing every time. Well, I got to get going here, but it was great speaking with you. And then maybe if I've met them for the first time, I'll be like, do you have LinkedIn? Do you have Instagram? Let's connect on there. But if I'm just
Yeah.
leaving, I'll just say like, oh, it was great speaking with you. Enjoy the rest of your day. We'll talk soon.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that. So have those practice, and I mean like just practice them a couple times so that you are comfortable saying that when the moment comes. Then you could
Mm-hmm.
just end conversations quickly and easily anytime, much
Yeah.
easier than you think. And then if you want to keep it going, just decide what you want to keep talking about. So, for example, if before you're talking to the person that said their workout or their dog was the best part of their weekend,
Mm-hmm.
ask them another question about that. And so, like, oh, like, which gym do you go to? What breed is your dog? Or, like, oh, by the way, like, how's work going these days? What's been the best part of your last week of work? And so you
Mm-hmm.
can have these sort of go-to questions if you want to keep the conversation going. Don't feel obligated to, but easy ones to ask about are if a person has kids, ask them about their kids. Person has pets,
Yeah.
ask them about their pets. If you know they watch TV, just ask about what shows they're watching. It's pretty
Mm-hmm.
easy. You just have to do it enough times and have some intention behind it, so it's super easy just to keep things going.
Yeah. Wow. Like, um, I don't know what to say about this, but it's just like I'm sitting down listening to this, um, high quality session or course or seminar, or like you're just amazing, Ty. You've said a lot of amazing things that even I've learned one or two from it. And before we continue, if you're watching this session, just like this video and share, because there are a lot of people struggling with how to talk, how to communicate, and how to be confident enough to start meaningful conversations that could lead to maybe meaningful collaborations or something else good. So, Ty, um, about mindset. Mindset is really important in most of the things that we do. And now, in terms of this, do we really need a mindset shift when we want to overcome awkwardness and build our confidence?
Yeah, it's a good question. I would say most people do.
Mm-hmm.
Most people do. We can think about this in two ways. So there's the mindset and how we actually think about speaking, and then there's the speaking skills themselves, right? So using your voice, using your words, using your body language would be the speaking skills themselves.
Yeah.
And then the mindset is like, how do we see ourselves in these conversations? How do we think about ourselves? How do we think about the way we're interacting? So an
Yeah.
easy one, I'll give you a couple examples. The first is if you can see every situation as practice, this is going to be extremely helpful. So what I mean by this is if you're speaking at work in a meeting, think of this as I'm just practicing speaking in meetings, right? So there's no
Okay.
pressure here. I'm not putting on a performance. I'm just going to practice speaking in a meeting. If you're giving a presentation, oh, it's not a big performance, I need to do well. I'm just going to go practice giving presentations. And there's people watching, which is the best way to practice. If it's a difficult conversation, the same thing. I'm going to go practice giving difficult conversations. So my only goal is to go and do my best and then try to improve each time because the biggest problem, Precious, is that a lot of people think of speaking as this performance, right? I have to do
Yes.
well, I want to say the
Yes.
right things, I don't want to say the wrong thing, I don't want to mess up, I don't want to forget anything. And then putting all that pressure on yourself makes it way harder for you and stresses you out, which then makes you a worse speaker. So thinking
That's
of
true.
everything as practice makes a huge difference.
It's just
And
like
then
the first day. It's just like the first day that I went to speak. I was invited to talk, and I asked them, was it going to be am I gonna sit down or stand? And they were like, there's this little podium. I'm like, oh my God, how am I going to stand and talk to these people? And they were like, I was still in school, final year in my university, and I was invited to talk to other young ladies about learning a skill and having a high income skill even when you're still in school and all that. So I stood. That was my first physical invitation. I just stood there. I was shaking. I held the podium like, a few times. I was like, at the end of the day, I told myself, I was just like, just talk to these people like they're humans. You don't have to be perfect. They're not perfect. You're not perfect. Even if you make mistake, even if you say like you are going to just do better. You're just going to um deliver this message. The main thing is the message. I don't think many of them are going to pick she repeated this twice or she did yeah, all those things. So I really resonate with that part of, trying not to be perfect. And so the second time, I felt a little bit more natural. So,
That's such a perfect example because one of the other big challenges people seem to find when they're nervous about speaking of any kind is exactly what you said. You're kind of worried about yourself, but when you
yeah.
make it just about sharing the message with others,
Mm-hmm.
then that also takes some pressure off because a lot of times we get worried because we're thinking, well, how do I look? How do I sound? I don't want to sound dumb. I don't want to look silly. But that's kind of a selfish way of thinking about it because you're not really there to look good and sound good. You're there to teach people something. You're there to help others,
Yeah.
right? And so when you think about that, you're like, okay, well, it's fine if I actually mess up a little bit as long as I get my message across because
Yes.
me messing up a little bit isn't going to take away from them getting the value.
Mm-hmm.
And the cool thing is when you're less worried about messing up, you mess up less because you're in a better state of mind. So the mindset
Okay.
is super important and really helpful when you make those changes we talked about.
Wow. Well, this may be a little bit general or personalized. For me, I'm an introvert, but I still find myself being like an extrovert when I'm outside, like maybe uh at an event or with friends or parties. And at some point, I kind of like try to categorize myself in between. I feel like they call it ambivert or so. So, does being an introvert or extrovert really affect the way we communicate? So, what does it have to do with it?
Yeah, it does affect the way that we communicate, but it doesn't really change anything in terms of the results that we can get. So, what I mean by
Oh,
that is an introvert may be less comfortable than an extrovert, but that doesn't mean they can't build all of the same skills. A lot of my
yeah.
extrovert clients, they're fine with speaking, meaning they don't feel as nervous sometimes, but that doesn't mean they're any better at it. Sometimes
Yeah,
they're worse because they just blabber on for too long and people get
that's
annoyed
true.
and no one understands them. And another thing is that you can change the way that you are. What I mean is I grew up an introvert and I still have introvert tendencies,
Yeah.
but you can adapt to almost anything as a human being. So what
Mm-hmm.
this means is an introvert naturally doesn't like being around people as much, right? Like our energy gets a little bit more drained if we have to speak to a lot of people. But for me, once I started to going to like more events, speaking to people more, I actually adapted and got used to having more interactions and having more conversations and being around people. So you eventually
Yeah.
get used to it, and then you don't get as drained talking to people for a longer period of time. So the
Yeah.
cool thing is that yeah, those things maybe determine your starting point, but they
Mm-hmm.
actually have nothing to do with your ending point. You can still
Yeah.
build the same skills and adapt and be really any way that you want confident, charismatic, likable, clear, assertive, however you want to be. No matter where
Yeah.
you're starting from, you can achieve any of those things.
Hmm. Okay. All right. I mean, this session has been amazing, and I really appreciate all the insights, the knowledge, the tips, everything. And I skipped about a few, about two, because I merged them together. And before we end the session, this session being a very short one, but I'd like to really let you talk to my listeners. What are the programs you have in terms of helping clients to boost their confidence and how to communicate better? What do you have courses? Do you have coaching sessions and the rest? So I can link everything in the description for them to check out.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate that. So I mainly help professionals speak more clearly and confidently so that they can not only advance their careers and keep moving up, whether it's their careers or their businesses, but also just get more respect, get more opportunities. And when
Hmm.
you learn to communicate better, you find that you no longer have to chase opportunities, but
Yeah.
opportunities come to you. So I mainly do one-on-one coaching right now. I do group
Okay.
trainings for organizations, but if you're an individual watching this, I do customized one-on-one coaching. So this is really for a person who you're in a point in your career now where you find yourself you're having to speak more, you have to speak to maybe more important people, you have to speak in meetings, maybe you're leading a team, you're giving presentations. So those are usually the people that I help, and they're at a point where they've had some success, right? It's not like they're like me at 13 years old hiding behind my sister, but they're at a point where they know, like, okay, in order to keep moving up in my career and keep leveling up, I need to be a better speaker. So
Hmm.
the coaching program really covers three main things, which is your voice, your words, so the way that you're explaining things,
Yeah.
and your body language. And then if
Wow.
needed, we cover building confidence and reducing nerves. So the main thing that I do is one-on-one coaching.
Okay, like perfect. Thank you so much for that. And if you're watching this, don't forget to subscribe to this channel and like this video, and also share with your friends, with your business bestie and other professionals, because this is an important session. I mean, you knowing how to talk and write does not mean that you know how to communicate. Communication is broad. So I hope you enjoyed the session. And Ty, do you have anything else to add before we end the session?
Yeah, actually, I'd love to give away something for free to your
Oh
listeners,
my
actually, just
God.
because
Okay.
I appreciate everything you do, Precious. You always go above and beyond, sharing value with your audience. So I felt like I should probably do the same and follow your lead here. So I'm going to give away some free stuff to your listeners.
Thank you.
So the first thing actually that I'll give away, so it's a free course. It's called How to Speak Like a Confident Leader in 7 Days. Okay, so you
Okay.
can get that totally for free. It'll teach you really a lot of the first steps for speaking with a high level of authority, confidence, clarity. And you can get that at howtospeakbetter.com, howtospeakbetter.com.
Okay.
And then the second thing I'm going to give away a free coaching session to anyone who is listening. And to take advantage of that, all you have to do is message me on Instagram or LinkedIn. Message me the word CEO 24, CEO 24, and then that way I'll know that you came from Precious's podcast here. And on LinkedIn or Instagram, my name is TYHOESGEN. So message me either on those two platforms and we will set that up for you.
Thank you. I mean, I really appreciate this offers. And I'm going to link everything in the description, both the keywords, the discount, everything. And I want you to take advantage of this because this offer is going to be just for a limited time. Yeah, I'm saying that. So
Yep.
thank you so much, Ty. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I really appreciate it for coming.
Yes, thank you for having me as a guest, Precious. This was a excellent conversation and you're a pretty good communicator yourself. So this is great.
Thank you for that compliment.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me as a guest.
Yeah. So I hope to see you next time, and don't forget to share, like, and subscribe. Have a good day.